Millions of deer farming in Africa for antlers and meat, deer antlers processing in factories. What does this mean, and why has it attracted international attention? In recent years, discussions about food security, sustainable farming, and the global trade in animal-based products have increasingly focused on Africa. One of the most striking examples comes from Burkina Faso, where authorities have launched ambitious projects to farm deer on a massive scale. These initiatives are designed not only to provide meat locally, but also to supply valuable antlers for international markets. Today we will explore the historical context, recent developments, and broader implications of this project. The idea of farming animals in Africa to address food shortages is not new. Since the mid-20th century, when many African nations gained independence, governments and international organizations have debated how to tackle recurring droughts, desertification, and reliance on food imports. In the 1970s and 1980s, for instance, the Sahel region, including Burkina Faso, faced devastating famines. Global institutions encouraged new agricultural models, from improved grain farming to livestock management. However, structural challenges, limited infrastructure, and dependency on foreign aid remained persistent obstacles. Burkina Faso itself has often been described as a landlocked country with scarce natural resources and fragile soils. Yet, across history, African societies have relied on diverse and innovative practices to ensure food resilience. Traditionally, hunting wild game, including deer, supplemented diets in rural areas. Meanwhile, in global markets, especially in Asia, deer antlers, often called velvet antlers, have been prized for centuries in traditional medicine. Historical records show that countries such as China, Korea, and Japan imported these products as part of established medical traditions. Diplomatically, Burkina Faso's decision to invest in deer farming fits into a wider African ambition to reposition the continent in global trade. For decades, Africa was largely seen as an exporter of raw materials, such as minerals and cash crops. Yet leaders have increasingly promoted agricultural diversification as a path to food sovereignty and economic stability. In this context, the farming of deer, an animal not commonly associated with African agriculture, represents a symbolic shift, turning arid lands into productive farms that can serve both local needs and international demand. In recent years, the government of Burkina Faso, under President Ibrahim Traoré, has unveiled bold projects aimed at reshaping the country's agricultural economy. Among these initiatives is the decision to develop large-scale deer farming, combined with locust farming, to address protein shortages and open new export markets. Authorities have allocated thousands of hectares of land for deer pastures, transforming them into controlled grazing areas. These farms are not simply enclosures, but carefully designed ecosystems with shade, water sources, and veterinary supervision. Pregnant does are housed in safe enclosures, where they can give birth without disturbance, while herds are fed on maize, millet, and alfalfa grown locally. This integration strengthens rural economies by linking crop production with animal husbandry. What makes the project remarkable is its dual objective. First, it aims to supply affordable, protein-rich meat to the domestic population. Venison, known for its low fat and high iron content, is presented as a healthier alternative to more expensive meats like beef, goat, or chicken. Second, it aims to export antlers, processed into powders, capsules, and supplements for global pharmaceutical and wellness markets. Early government statements indicate that revenues could reach billions of dollars annually if Burkina Faso secures even a modest share of this trade. Equally important is the emphasis on ethical and humane practices. Unlike some global examples where antlers are harvested under harsh conditions, Burkina Faso's model requires animals to be anesthetized before removal of antlers at the velvet stage. Veterinary doctors conduct the procedure with care, applying medicines and protective caps to prevent bleeding and infection. This approach has been described by local authorities as human and green farming, highlighting respect for both economic goals and animal welfare. Universities in Burkina Faso have also begun research programs dedicated to studying the medical potential of deer antlers. These programs are not limited to traditional remedies, but include collaborations with international laboratories to identify possible new pharmaceutical uses. Such investments in research indicate an ambition to move beyond raw exports and enter the higher value segments of the industry. The project raises important questions that go beyond agriculture. On one hand, it demonstrates a strategic attempt by an African state to diversify its economy and reduce dependency on external aid. By producing meat for local populations, the initiative directly addresses nutritional challenges, particularly protein deficiencies. By exporting antlers, it opens doors to global markets that are traditionally dominated by Asia. On the other hand, there are practical and ethical considerations. Large-scale animal farming requires long-term investment in infrastructure, veterinary care, and monitoring of environmental impacts. The balance between economic growth and ecological sustainability remains crucial. Some observers may also point out the challenges of competing with established antler-producing nations like New Zealand or China, where supply chains are already deeply entrenched. Nevertheless, the symbolic value is significant. Burkina Faso's move illustrates that African nations are increasingly defining their own models of development, tailored to their realities rather than dictated solely by external actors. The project reflects broader continental debates about food sovereignty, economic independence, and the search for industries that combine traditional knowledge with modern science. Importantly, the discourse around humane farming also positions Burkina Faso as a contributor to global discussions on ethical consumption. In a world where consumers are more attentive to sustainability, branding African products as both ethical and scientifically validated could enhance their market potential. The story of deer farming in Burkina Faso is more than an agricultural experiment. It reflects a broader vision: to turn challenges such as arid lands and limited resources into opportunities for innovation and resilience. By linking local food security with global markets, the project highlights Africa's potential role in shaping future food systems. Whether these efforts will transform Burkina Faso into a new player in the international antler and venison trade remains to be seen. What is clear is that such initiatives open new pathways for economic diversification, scientific research, and ethical farming practices. Only time will tell how these choices influence regional development and global perceptions of Africa's capacity to redefine its economic future.